Pond by Jim LaMarche. And this book is really beautifully illustrated. So let's just take a minute to look at the cover and the back. It's a double picture, so it goes all the way like this. And when I look at this, one of my favorite things that I see is how this kid is holding a stick with a blue jay feather tied to it. And there's a mourning dove. There's some wood ducks, geese, herons, a fawn, red-winged blackbird. So many. Oh, look at the rabbits. Are there insects? We're going to find out. The dust jacket is the same as the book cover. So, pond. Okay. So it's written for Jonah. And there's a child that looks like winter time because there's a little bit of frost, sweater and some boots on, no leaves on the trees. And so it begins here in this winter landscape, the pond by Jim LaMarche. This is so weird, I said to myself as I watched the clear water bubble up from the ground. We had always called it the pit. I followed the icy stream as it ran through the sand and gravel and passed through the big rocks out into the woods. I slowly looked all around me. It's not a pit, I said out loud. I can do it, but I'm going to need help. I ran home and gathered my sister Katie and my best friend Pablo. The pit, I said excitedly. Yeah, so, said Pablo. I think the pit was once a pond, I said. I told them about the bubbling water and my idea. Let's do it, Matt, said Pablo. I'm in, said Katie. So this is Matt. And I think that Matt has made a discovery, and they're all going to work together. The next Saturday, we started early. We gathered up the junk, the old tires, bottles, and rusted cans, and filled our rain barrel. Pablo's dad helped us take it all to the dump. Next, we started on the new dam. We got big stones and old logs from the woods. Katie kept finding pretty feathers. I can use these, she said. The dam took days to finish. One morning, as we worked, Pablo yelled, "You've got to see this!" It was half buried in the sand, said Pablo. It's beautiful, Katie said as she washed the dirt away. We all took turns holding and studying the heart stone. Do you think somebody made this? I asked. Look at Katie's feather necklace. She did use those feathers. She made them into a necklace. The pond filled slowly as the warm spring days passed. Wherever we found a leak, we plugged it with more rocks and branches and muddy grasses. As we waited, Pablo practiced his music and Katie read to us about the new birds and bugs we were seeing arrive at the pond. I think the heartstone is made of quartz, she said one day. Blue quartz. So she's looking at a gem book and she's studying to figure out what kind of stone that was. As summer arrived, so did the bugs and the rainstorms. There were good bugs like the dragonflies and honeybees and horrible bugs like the mosquitoes and nasty horseflies that bit hard and left itchy welts. The bugs were bad enough, but when the afternoon thunderstorms came, we had to run for home. Pablo loved the big storms, so they're running to go back home where it's safe, and certainly the mosquitoes and the horseflies are not going to keep these children away. All right, let's get to work, said Dad. Oh, sorry, I skipped a page. Let me go back. Oh, no, I didn't. All right, let's get to work, said Dad. The day before, we had dragged the old wooden boat into the pond. It had started leaking immediately. At dinner, we had told Dad about the boat. I can't believe it's still there, he said quietly. Let's go see what we can do in the morning. As Dad patched and puttied the holes and cracks, Pablo sanded out the slivers, and I nailed down all those loose boards. Katie painted a dragonfly on the bow, and we'll call it the dragonfly, she said. Yes, I think so. I think the animals are getting used to these children being there. The dragonfly floats, Pablo proclaimed as we pulled the boat into the pond. The water was cool and crystal clear and shallow enough to walk around the entire pond. We all took our turn pulling the boat. Those are barn swallows, said Katie. They eat mosquitoes. Well then, I love barn swallows, Pablo said. Oh, Jim LaMarche gave us a double page. Look at that. Let me see if I can hold it for you so that you can see every bit. Oh, they have an umbrella in their boat. They have buckets. They could stay there all day, and they do. It was late fall when we started hearing the geese. In other years, they had always flown in V's high above us, but now in the late afternoon, hundreds of them would fly down and rest on our pond. Pablo called it the Goose Hotel. The geese seemed nervous with us in the boat, but Pablo sang and played his song softly, and the geese calmed and swam up close to us. They're hungry, I said. Let's get some bread. My book says they should only eat the food they find in the wild, said Miss Know-It-all Katie. But pause. That's actually the truth. You shouldn't feed these geese bread. They need to find the food that they eat normally. It was almost January before the pond froze solid enough to skate on. On some Saturdays, we would have skating parties with all our friends. Pablo's mom would bring us big pots of hot chili and cocoa, and we would skate all day until the sun set. The ice on the pond finally melted, and after a long winter of heavy coats and boots, it felt good to run in the warm spring air. To the top of the mountain, Pablo yelled as he ran ahead of us up the little hill. At the top, Pablo reached in his pocket and took out the heartstone. Look at the pond, he said in a whisper as he handed me the stone. How come we didn't see it before, said Katie. We were just too close, I said. It belongs in the pond. We should put it back, said Pablo. What? That's crazy, I said. Oh, they are discovering something, and you see the shape of the pond? Pablo was right. The heart belongs back in the pond, said Katie quietly. By the time we climbed back down, they had convinced me to. Yeah, I guess so, I mumbled. Pablo, you found it. You should do it, said Katie. We took turns holding the heart one more time. Then Pablo skipped the stone back into the center of the pond. One skip for each of us. Something odd happened later that afternoon. As we sat on the bank and made our summer plans, some of the animals and birds we had seen the past year gathered around us. Without any noise, we watched one another for a long time, and then slowly they walked or swam away and went back to their homes, and then we went back to our homes too. It's as if everyone's coming out to say goodbye to the heartstone, or hello to it, really. And there's the pond, and there's the heart shape of the pond. Do you know what? Did you notice that these children never talked about going back, going to school? Maybe they're living in the time of where we all have to stay home from school, but they found something different to do. They made a pond, and they were able to work together. The end.